Every day, our brain processes 5 times more information than 20 years ago. The continuous stream of notifications, messages, posts, and news has become the norm of modern life. We wake up with a phone in hand and fall asleep scrolling through social media feeds. Even during moments of rest, we remain connected, checking emails on the beach, responding to work messages during family dinners, browsing news while waiting at the doctor's office. We live in an era where disconnecting from the network is almost perceived as social suicide. Constant availability has become not just a technical capability, but an unspoken societal demand. But what price do we pay for this continuous connection? Our brain, not evolutionarily designed for such an information load, signals exhaustion. Digital fatigue is not just a trendy term, but a real condition experienced by millions of people. It is an invisible epidemic of our time, creeping up unnoticed, but with very tangible consequences. Can we enjoy the benefits of technological progress without compromising our psychological well-being? This question is becoming increasingly relevant in a world where the line between online and offline has practically blurred. What is digital fatigue from a scientific perspective? It is not just a subjective feeling of exhaustion, but a complex neurophysiological syndrome. When the brain is overloaded with a constant flow of information, measurable biochemical changes occur within it. The prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making and concentration, begins to operate at its limits. Studies show that under prolonged informational load, cortisol levels, the stress hormone, rise, while the resources of neurotransmitters responsible for pleasure and motivation are depleted. Unlike ordinary physical fatigue, digital exhaustion has its own peculiarities. Our brain is not evolutionarily adapted to process such a quantity of diverse information. For thousands of years, the human mind evolved to solve specific survival tasks in a natural environment, where the number of stimuli was limited. The modern digital environment bombards us with an endless stream of signals, requiring immediate reaction. Each notification, each new email, activates the reward system in the brain, causing a micro-release of dopamine. We become dependent on these stimuli, constantly checking devices in search of a new dose of informational reward. At the same time, the brain does not receive the necessary periods of deep rest for recovery. Especially affected is the so-called default mode network, a neural system activated during quiet wakefulness and responsible for creative thinking, introspection, and processing experience. In a state of digital overload, this network practically has no chance to function fully. An informational storm attacks us from all sides. Each source of digital fatigue has its own specifics, but together they create a powerful torrent that drains our mental resources. Social networks, with their endless news feeds and algorithms tailored to our interests, create the illusion that we are always missing out on something. Psychologists call this phenomenon FOMO, fear of missing out, which forces us to endlessly check for updates. Work messengers blur the lines between personal and professional, turning an 8-hour workday into round-the-clock availability. News aggregators bombard us with information, often negative, causing chronic anxiety and a sense of helplessness. Even the entertainment content we consume for relaxation requires constant decision-making. What to watch next? Which series to choose from thousands of available options? Behind all of this lies an entire industry, the attention economy. Tech giants compete for the most valuable resource of our time and attention. Teams of psychologists, designers, and programmers develop interfaces that maximally draw in the user. Endless scrolling, automatic playback of the next video, personalized recommendations. All these features are created not for our convenience, but to retain attention for as long as possible. every additional minute spent in an app is converted into advertising revenue. Paradoxically, even digital relaxation often doesn't provide true recovery. Watching entertainment content seems like relaxation, but the brain continues to actively process information. Studies show that after several hours of rest on social networks, people feel more exhausted than before they started. This is explained by the fact that even passive consumption of content requires constant shifting of attention, making micro-decisions and emotional reactions. Our brain does not get a real break. It simply changes the type of load. How to tell if you're suffering from digital fatigue? Symptoms manifest on 3 levels: physical, emotional, and cognitive. Let's start with the most noticeable: cognitive changes. Have you noticed that it's become harder to concentrate on a single task for more than 15 minutes? This is no accident. Constant switching between apps and devices trains the brain to multitask, destroying the ability for deep concentration. People with digital exhaustion often complain of brain fog, a state where thoughts become viscous, and making even simple decisions turns into a challenge. The second cognitive problem is information anxiety. It manifests as a compulsive need to check devices, a fear of missing an important message or news. On a physical level, digital fatigue manifests as sleep disturbances. The blue light from screens suppresses the production of melatonin, the hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle. But it's not just about the light. Emotionally charged content before bed keeps the nervous system tense, preventing deep phases of rest. In the morning, you wake up feeling as if you haven't slept at all. Headaches, tension in the neck and shoulders, dry eyes. These are all physical markers of prolonged presence in the digital environment. A paradoxical symptom of digital exhaustion is constant fatigue that doesn't go away after rest. Your brain is so overloaded that even during moments of inactivity, it continues to process informational noise. The emotional sphere also suffers. Irritability, outbursts of anger over trifles, a feeling of emptiness after time spent on social media. These are all signals of overload. A particularly alarming sign is a decrease in empathy. Studies show that people who spend a lot of time in the digital environment are worse at reading the emotions of their interlocutor in real-life communication. It's important to learn to recognize these symptoms in the early stages, when changes are reversible. Pay attention to your habits. Do you check your phone immediately after waking up? Do you feel anxious when you forget your device at home? Can you go an hour without looking at a screen? Honest answers to these questions will help you understand how serious your digital fatigue is. What happens to our brain when digital fatigue becomes a chronic condition? Neuroscientists are sounding the alarm. Long-term information overload can cause structural changes in the brain. Studies show that years of digital overload reduce the density of gray matter in areas responsible for self-control and decision-making. Chronic stimulation of the dopamine system through constant digital rewards, likes, notifications, leads to its desensitization. The brain requires more and more stimuli to achieve the same level of satisfaction. A vicious cycle emerges. We spend more time online searching for a dopamine rush, but receive less and less pleasure. Of particular concern is the link between digital overload and the development of serious psychological problems. A meta-analysis encompassing data from 32 studies showed a direct correlation between excessive digital device use and an increased risk of depression. The reason lies not only in social isolation, but also in neurochemical processes. Constant information load depletes serotonin stores and other neurotransmitters responsible for emotional well-being. Cognitive functions suffer no less than emotional ones. Years spent in multitasking mode weaken the ability for deep thinking. We lose the skill of prolonged concentration. The brain becomes accustomed to constantly shifting focus and begins to resist immersion in a single task. Memory also undergoes changes. We increasingly rely on external digital information storage and train our own mnemonic abilities less and less. This phenomenon has been dubbed digital amnesia, a state where the brain automatically doesn't memorize information if it knows it's digitally available. Anxiety disorders become companions of chronic digital fatigue. Constant information noise keeps the nervous system in a state of heightened vigilance, preventing the activation of the parasympathetic system responsible for relaxation. We live in a mode of continuous mobilization, which exhausts the adrenal glands and disrupts the functioning of the entire endocrine system. Modern science is actively investigating the impact of digital technologies on our brains, and the results are causing serious concern. Neurobiological studies from the University of California show that constant multitasking reduces the density of gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for self-control and decision-making. A group of neurophysiologists, led by Dr. Adam Ghazali, discovered that the brain of a person who regularly switches between tasks functions less efficiently, even when performing a single action. Experiments using functional MRI revealed that multitaskers utilize more brain resources to achieve the same results as people who work sequentially. Psychological studies from Stanford University demonstrate a correlation between information overload and reduced empathy. Volunteers who spent more than 6 hours a day with digital devices were less adept at recognizing the emotions of interlocutors in real-life communication. Longitudinal studies have identified a correlation between intensive social media use and an increased risk of depression in adolescents and young adults. However, the scientific community is not unanimous in its assessment of digital threats. Studies from Oxford University indicate a moderate impact of digital technologies on mental well-being, less than, for example, lack of sleep or an unbalanced diet. The brain's neuroplasticity allows it to adapt to new conditions in the information environment. Professor of Cognitive Neuroscience Sarah Jane Blakemore notes that the brain of a modern teenager develops new information processing skills unavailable to previous generations. The key question dividing scientists is whether the observed brain changes are pathology or evolutionary adaptation. Research provides conflicting answers. The objective picture is complicated by methodological difficulties. It is hard to isolate the influence of digital technologies from other factors of modern life. Scientific consensus is forming around the idea of balance. Digital technologies themselves are neutral. The problem is created by their excessive and uncontrolled use. Digital hygiene is not just a trendy term, but a system of practical skills necessary for everyone in an era of information overload. Just as we brush our teeth or take a shower daily, our digital space needs regular care and cleaning. The first step to restoring mental balance is an audit of your digital environment. Take your phone and carefully look at the home screen. How many apps truly make your life better? And how many simply consume time and attention? Ruthlessly delete everything that doesn't bring real benefit or joy. The next stage is reviewing notifications. According to statistics, the average smartphone user receives up to 150 notifications daily, each of which is a micro-stress for the nervous system. Turn off all non-urgent alerts, especially from social networks and news apps. Leave only what truly requires an immediate reaction. Calls, messages from loved ones, work communications during working hours. Creating digital-free zones in your physical space is another key element of digital hygiene. The bedroom should become a gadget-free territory. Studies show even a turned-off phone next to the bed reduces sleep quality by 15%. Buy a regular alarm clock instead of using your smartphone. The dining room is another place that should be protected from digital intrusion. Eating in the presence of screens becomes automatic. We don't notice the taste and overeat, Set clear time limits for device usage. The time blocking technique helps structure digital consumption. For example, checking email only twice a day at a predetermined time, not every 15 minutes. Allocate periods of deep work in your calendar when all notifications are off. Digital hygiene requires mindfulness and consistency. Start small, one day a week without social media, or a morning without checking email. Gradually form new habits, without demanding an instant renunciation of all digital pleasures from yourself. Remember, the goal is not a complete rejection of technology, but regaining control over it. Digital detox is not just a passing fad, but a necessary practice of mental ecology in the modern world. You can start with mini detoxes. Set aside just 3 hours without gadgets on a weekend. Put your phone in another room. Turn off notifications on your computer, and do something that brings you offline pleasure. A walk, reading a physical book, or spending time with loved ones. Such short breaks help the brain reboot and reduce informational stress. For a more serious effect, practice a 24-hour detox once a week. Choose a day, for example Saturday, and completely disconnect from the digital world. Warn your loved ones that you will be unavailable, and enjoy the freedom from constant connection. Preparation for a detox is no less important than the process itself. A few days before starting, gradually reduce the time spent with devices. Make a list of offline activities that genuinely engage you. This will prevent boredom and the desire to return to screens. A long detox, from 3 days to a week, requires more thorough preparation. Set up autoresponders for your email. Delegate work tasks that require online presence. The first 2 days can be the most challenging. Many experience genuine withdrawal symptoms, anxiety, restlessness, an obsessive urge to check notifications. This is a normal reaction of a brain accustomed to constant stimulation. The key to a successful detox is mindfulness and gradualness. Don't immediately aim for radical measures. Start small, gradually increasing the duration of digital breaks. Track your feelings during the detox. Many note improved sleep after the first 24 hours, and after 3 to 4 days, the ability for deep concentration returns. It's important to end the detox correctly. Don't immediately rush to check all accumulated messages and notifications. Return to the digital world gradually, maintaining mindfulness and the new boundaries established during the break. In a world of digital storm, our brains desperately need a quiet harbor. This is where mindfulness practices, conscious presence in the present moment, come to the rescue. These ancient techniques have gained new relevance in an era of information overload. Neurobiological research confirms regular mindfulness meditation literally remodels the brain, strengthening areas responsible for attention and emotional regulation. Just 20 minutes of daily practice for 8 weeks increases the density of gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, the very area that is depleted by digital fatigue. You can start with the simplest technique of mindful breathing. Find a quiet place, turn off all devices, and simply observe your breath for 5 minutes. When your mind inevitably begins to wander, and it will, especially in people with digital addiction, gently return your attention to your breath. This simple practice trains the neural pathways responsible for voluntary attention and self-control. The next level is the practice of mindful body scanning. Lying in a comfortable position, sequentially direct your attention from your toes to the crown of your head, noticing sensations without judgment or reaction. This technique helps restore contact with the body, which is often lost when immersed in the digital world. The RAIN practice is particularly effective for reducing information anxiety. Recognize the anxiety. Accept its presence. Investigate bodily sensations, and non-identify with them. This technique breaks the automatic chain of reactions to digital triggers. Interestingly, Mindfulness changes not only our attitude to stress, but also the brain's very ability to switch between tasks. Studies show that people who regularly practice meditation demonstrate more flexible attention and a lower cognitive cost when shifting focus. They return faster to a state of concentration after distraction, an indispensable skill in a world of constant notifications.
It is important to integrate mindfulness into everyday life.
Practice micro moments of mindfulness. Before checking your phone, take 3 conscious breaths. Eat 1 meal a day without screens. Walk to work, noticing the surrounding sounds and colors, instead of immersing yourself in your smartphone.
The restructuring of digital life begins with the conscious formation of new habits.
Instead of chaotic information consumption, introduce the principle of 2 modes into your life: deep and shallow immersion. In deep mode, you fully concentrate on one task, turning off all distractions. Shallow mode is suitable for a quick glance at news or social media within a strictly limited time. Such a division helps the brain more effectively allocate attention resources and prevents information exhaustion. The time-boxing technique becomes an indispensable tool in the fight against digital fatigue. Allocate specific time blocks in your schedule for working with email, social media, and news. For example, check email only twice a day, at 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, dedicating no more than 30 minutes to it. 2 15-minute blocks can be dedicated to social media, after lunch and in the evening. Between digital sessions, be sure to take breaks to recover. A short walk, meditation, or simply contemplating nature outside the window. Organizing physical and digital space plays a key role in reducing cognitive load. Configure your devices so that they serve you, not distract you. Use the Do Not Disturb function at certain hours. Activate night mode to reduce blue light exposure before bed. The computer desktop should contain a minimum of icons, and the smartphone home screen only the most necessary applications. Others can be hidden in folders or on distant screens, creating an additional barrier to thoughtless use. A well-thought-out information storage system will eliminate the need to keep everything in your head. Use digital notes to capture ideas, a calendar for planning, and specialized applications for storing articles and videos that you want to study later.
Create a personal system for filtering incoming information. Subscribe only to truly valuable sources. Use aggregators to combine news by interest. Configure smart algorithms for sorting mail. Remember, healthy digital habits are formed gradually. Start small. For example, with an hour in the morning without gadgets, or with turning off notifications 2 hours before bed in the evening. Track your progress and note improvements in well-being and productivity. Over time, these small changes will transform into a sustainable lifestyle, where technology occupies its rightful place, as useful tools, not dictators of your attention. In a world of constant digital stimulation, our brains desperately need to return to reality. Offline activities are not just pleasant pastimes, but a real medicine for an exhausted nervous system. Neurobiological studies confirm contact with nature triggers a cascade of restorative processes in the brain. Just 20 minutes of walking in a park reduces cortisol levels by 30% and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for recovery and rest. When we are among trees and grass, the brain enters a mode of soft attention, a state in which cognitive resources are naturally replenished without conscious effort. Physical activity turns out to be a powerful antidote to digital fatigue. During movement, neurotrophic factors are released, proteins that stimulate the growth of new neurons and strengthen existing neural connections. Even a moderate 30-minute workout improves blood supply to the brain by 15%, delivering oxygen and nutrients to exhausted cells. Activities that require coordination and attention are especially effective. Dancing, martial arts, team games. They create new neural pathways that compensate for the damage from monotonous digital stimulation. Real communication is another key element of recovery. When we interact with people face-to-face, mirror neurons and the entire social neural network are activated. Studies show a live conversation over a cup of tea activates more brain areas than even the most intense online chat. Our nervous system is evolutionarily tuned to read micro-expressions, voice intonations, and body language, signals largely absent in digital communication. Creative hands-on activities, drawing, sculpting, knitting, switch the brain into a flow state, a state of complete engagement where time seems to stand still. In this state, the brain produces alpha waves, associated with deep relaxation and creativity. Start small. Allocate at least 1 hour daily in your schedule for an offline activity that brings joy. Gradually increase this time. Create rituals related to the real world. Saturday walks in the park, Sunday board games with friends, morning yoga without a smartphone at hand. Remember, returning to reality is not a rejection of technology, but a restoration of balance, where the digital world complements, rather than replaces, real life. Digital well-being is not just a modern term, but a new necessity of our time. We stand on the threshold of an era where conscious information consumption becomes as important a skill as physical activity or proper nutrition. The future belongs to those who learn to manage their digital environment, rather than be managed by it. Each of us can create a personal digital well-being strategy based on 3 simple principles: awareness, balance, and purposefulness. Awareness helps us notice how technology affects our mood and energy. Balance allows for a harmonious combination of online and offline activities. Purposefulness ensures the use of digital tools to achieve meaningful goals, rather than mindless content consumption. Imagine a world where technology truly serves humanity, enhancing our capabilities rather than depleting our attention. A world where applications are developed with users' mental health in mind, and not just to maximize time spent on the platform. This future is closer than it seems. Already, major tech companies are implementing digital well-being features into their products, responding to society's growing demand. But true change begins with each of us making a personal choice. Small daily decisions, waking up and not immediately reaching for the phone, dedicating time for deep work without distractions, creating an evening ritual of disconnecting from the network, gradually form a new culture of interaction with the digital world. Digital well-being is a journey, not a destination. We will make mistakes, return to old habits, start over again. And that's normal. It's important to remember, technology is created to enrich our lives, not to replace them. When we find this balance, we discover an amazing thing. Not only do we become more productive and calmer, but we also regain the ability to truly be present in our own lives. And this, perhaps, is the most valuable gift we can give ourselves in the digital age.